3-2-1 process. I read it and I go, yeah, easy for you to say. Please go ahead,
Yeah.
Karen.
Okay, I have had a lot of experience with shadow and shadow work. I did a deep dive through Jung on my own back in the 90s when I was dealing with some midlife issues. And so this is my own, and I've read a lot of other Jungians, and I never did it formally through through any therapy or therapy groups, but it has just been an ongoing, not more than a thread, a stream in my life, side by side, intense meditation for gosh, over 40 years now, and that'll bring up stuff. Uh, and so I'm totally resonate with Wilber. Okay, I'm ordering my sequence here in my mind. When Wilber is one of his many strokes of absolute genius and contributions that he's made that nobody else has, to see that meditation and the great spiritual contemplative traditions by themselves will not do the whole job. That shadow work, which is very recent discovery and development in the West, and I think Jung more than Freud. Here's where I disagree with Wilber. Uh, uh, and that's a whole other. I could do more than a TED talk on that. I don't think Wilber has ever been fair to Jung, but Jung. He gives. I think this chapter in Integral Life Practice is a superb introduction, really well crafted. I mean, it's the work of a number of minds over a number, working with after a number of years of experience, as a first introduction to the whole concept of shadow. It's
You're talking
superb.
about the
It
intro to this, right?
yes, integral life practice. It barely scratches the surface, but it's an excellent beginning point. So um, I really resonated with what you said. That's why I reacted. What you said is, oh my gosh, it's easy for you. 3-to-1 practice. That's easy for you to say. Oh man, yes, I have actually done shadow work. I mean, kind of intuitively, but also I knew about it from reading Jung and many of the deeper Jungian writers, especially Marie-Louise von Franz. Have you ever heard of her?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good. This is familiar territory for you. Excellent, because she literally wrote the book, her book on shadow and recollection, and then another one, Shadow and Evil and Fairy Tales. I recommend
Good
those
one.
as Shadow and Evil in Fairy Tales. I'm going to be recommending those as we move on into teal, into turquoise, and on. We are going to be dealing with these aspects of our collective shadow, like fairy tales, horror movies. This is the kind of material this is how we work that material. This is the dark forest of fairy tales that we're wandering through. And these are layers in our psyche. Right. So Marie-Louise von Franz and Jung are, I think, they are excellent guides through this material. So yes, what we're scratching the surface of here is deep and rich, and this shows a through line that these horrors, the monster that chases us in our dreams in one of the exercises in this chapter, the monsters in our horror movies, the monster stories we tell ourselves about what's happening. This is the collective shadow and our individual shadows. And so Jung and Marie-Louise von Franz, especially, she literally wrote the book. So I would recommend, if you're interested, those two books by Marie-Louise von Franz. Start with The Shadow and Evil and Fairy Tales. That's very straightforward. The one on shadow, projection and recollection is profound. It has a huge middle section where she goes into some late antique stuff. You can skip that. I'm a culture nerd. But she goes into, if you really want to understand shadow and projection, read that book. That's my first recommendation.
Shadow and recollection.
Shadow and Recollection in something or other. Marie-Louise von
Yeah.
Franz. She breaks it down. Okay, I'm kind of going in a direction I hadn't quite intended. She breaks see, this chapter, this introduction, it's an excellent first step, but we're taking the first two steps into not just a swimming pool, but into an ocean, right? And
Mhm.
this ocean has sleeper waves and tides and so on. So uh, uh, I don't think anybody's going to get themselves into too much trouble doing these exercises because they don't go very deep, fortunately. But this is the kind of stuff people go into years of therapy to deal with. No shit. And okay, I'm going to circle back around now. The point I started aiming for, which is that Ken Wilber's stroke, one of his many strokes of genius, was to see that the great meditative techniques of the pre-modern eras, the wisdom traditions of the world, they cannot deal with shadow material. That's a whole separate, no matter how much you sit in meditation. I think Ken Wilber's spot on that, because these aspects, and I would quibble with how he presents it technically, but it'll do for now. These, what he calls shadow, is actually just one aspect of shadow. Shadow is actually a much larger field. But what he's talking about, these pieces of our spontaneous, authentic psyches that we've actively encapsulated and repressed, that takes energy. Emotions are energy, motion, emotion, just energy. What forms it takes and what it does. Something else again. So we have to put a certain bit of our psychic energy, our elan vital, or whatever you call it, into encapsulating and suppressing, like pushing something that wants to bob up to the surface. We have to keep pushing it down. And that wraps up a certain amount of our life energy. This can be life-saving if what it is so shattering and we are vulnerable that it could shatter us. To just kind of put it somewhere where we don't have to deal with it, like in fairy tales, the magic chase, where you run away from something, an overwhelming demon, and you throw parts of yourself behind you, like you throw your comb and it becomes a forest, or you throw your jacket and it becomes a bog. You're sacrificing pieces of yourself to keep something that would destroy you at bay, until you reach a stage you find a helper or a magic talisman or whatever, where you can face whatever you need to face. So there are times when this is, it's necessary and sometimes life-saving. However, this also, when it becomes habitual, things that we could face, but it's the habit not to, we do, no. When we're ready and we have help, it helps to have help, and then face it, because the energy we put into it is programmed to skitter away out of conscious awareness, like cockroaches. Whenever, like if I've repressed this aspect of myself that I'm furious at so-and-so, but that's totally unacceptable, so no, I'm just kind of, wow, why are so many people angry at me? But whenever that anger at that justified anger at so-and-so, who I'm terrified of, arises, that energy I put, it skitters away. If I try to aim my attention at it, it will duck around back in an area I cannot see it. And meditative techniques, no matter how powerful, do not address that. So wherever because that's where we put our conscious attention, this little piece of our psyche will skitter away like cockroaches when you walk into a room. And that's why people sit on the mat and meditate for years and years and years and years and still have the same neuroses as they did 30 years ago, right? So this is Wilber's genius, to put that together and package it for us and say that modern psychotherapeutic techniques are essential to the cleaning up process, which can compromise our waking up and growing up and showing up and so on. So yes, and so this is crucial. It's basic, but I think his treatment is still rather superficial, which is kind of what I heard. That was my layering of when you said, well, that's easy for you to say. Yes, this is a first step in a necessary and right direction. It's a good entry, but these are deep waters we are entering here. So yes, my personal experience, I actually, to finish up, and then I want to draw you, then I want to hear from you more, like what you want with this support pod you're doing and so on, how we can craft this so it can grow into whatever you want it to grow into. But to finish up, I actually did at one point in my deep Jungian dive, find a place where another one of Jung's foes, I don't think it was Marie-Louise von Franz, I don't think she would detail. She warned that you should not do this real shadow work unless you have an experienced professional or somebody who knows what they're doing with you. We are professionals. Do not try this at home, kind of thing. But I actually found either her or one of her colleagues give a detailed, like a page-long description of how you enter it. So Wilber's is it's superficial. It won't take you very deep necessarily, but that's a good thing because we're getting into parts of ourselves that we might not be ready to face, and that's why we don't allow them into awareness. So I followed. I actually wrote a memoir about this. I had an intractable mood, kind of an obsession with this one person. It doesn't matter what, and it was completely irrational. There was nothing in my daily life that justified this. It was a very negative obsession. I couldn't stand being in the same room with this person. No reason whatsoever. And I knew this must be about me, and it wouldn't go away. It just got worse. He was part of my regular social life. And so when I stumbled across, so after a number of months of just, oh, it's like having poison oak that wouldn't go away. It was really awful. So I stumbled across this page-long detailed description of how you kind of sit with an intractable mood is how it's presented. And I followed the page-long this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And I'd been meditating for like daily 2.5 hours a day for like 17 years. So, I mean, I was able to really put my attention, focus. And then you have a conversation with your mood, and that's the part two, that's the second person where you actually have a dialogue with the image that presents itself. Okay. It's not what I got. I got an image. I got a download zap. It was like being electrocuted. It was like being struck by lightning. I got this like download of this woman sitting. It was a vision. It wasn't, it was just kind of just for a split second, but like being hit by lightning, just her looking at me with this knowing smile on her face. And I could describe her, and a zap download of information. This was a past life of mine. And it gave me information about why I was so, this person in my life today was a reincarnation of somebody who had a disaster affecting, whatever, where this came from, I don't know. But basically, I spent the next 3 days shivering in a corner of my house and just kind of unpacking, like wherever I put my attention, just knowledge about it. Oh, goodness. Well, what about, oh, and it was just like, I wasn't making this shit up. It was like flowing into me like a cascade of information. And I ended up, after 3 days, I kind of recovered my equanimity and went about my daily life. But I eventually wrote up like a 5-page kind of note. This is kind of the life of and her and 2 other main characters and this whole trajectory. And I've actually ended up writing a memoir about it that's on my website, about a 5-page memoir. And that's the basis of my creative work, the novel I'm writing, and so on. So like these things are, this is real shit. This is real shit. And it's not, and there are reasons we hide these pieces of ourselves from ourselves, like until we're ready to face them, and having shadow work techniques. And I don't think anybody's going to get themselves into serious trouble with the 3-2-1 process Ken Wilber describes. But this is like starting to remind me of the 70s, with the human potential movement and Esalen and all these new human potential movement therapies. And there were bodies on the rocks, there were. So this is these techniques, and this is something I kind of like preach from time to time, is deal with these responsibly and with respect. These are these are psychoactive, just like entheogens. These techniques can be psychoactive. And so I think it's great that this is in the book. It's an excellent chapter. The parts, before I turn this back over to you, the parts I really resonate with are the emotional transmutations, which I think technically are actually different from shadow work and projection per se. The shadow and projection go together, because if we have the shadow actually contains a lot of other stuff too, and much of it very positive. But the pieces that we have actively repressed, the pieces that would be conscious, except that we have forced them into our unconscious, That's what Wilber's talking about here, and they do and that's and that's what projects. That's part of the process. We see it around us. It's there. Because it's there. It's vibrating. It's that emotion. It doesn't stop existing, and it's energy. It's still vibrating. And so, if we refuse to see it in ourselves, of course we see it out there somewhere, and we'll find hooks. Our psyche will find hooks, and usually the hook really does have some quality of what we're projecting. So of course, that's where it's coming from. That annoying person over there.
That's the hook, what you refer to.
That's the hook. Yeah. I'm just really irritated, but no, I'm sweetness and light and new age and positive thinking. And so my irritation projects itself out onto that irritating person over there, who is probably a little bit irritating, but doesn't seem to bother other people. But don't they realize, how can they not see how irritating she is? Right. So there's almost always some kind of hook for our projection, but the point of shadow work is to reown our own part. And this is something Jung said is really important, that even if the 93% of it is in the person we've projected it on, and only 3% of it is on us, we are better off not trying to change them. We are better off on working on our own shadow, just dealing with it inside us. At 2%, and the key is, are we triggered? And I think that's a good that may be a good place to start for actually doing the 3-2-1 exercises. What triggers me? Oh, that's probably it's always a shadow projection. Oh, what if that's a shadow projection? Ooh. And that's really, oh gosh, that's kind of like, oh my gosh, that was really me all along. Ooh, if you really do it right, you're sweating a bit. It's not this is not pleasant. This is like turning the manure going out to the compost heap and throwing the chicken shit or the whatever manure and working the manure into compost by getting out there and just shoveling and turning. And this is hard work, and it's unpleasant, but it provides rich fertilizer for a beautiful garden. And I agree, it is necessary, because if we do not consciously address it, it will contaminate everything else we do in the rest of the practice. So it's important. And so I think just kind of going, I would recommend going with just be aware, try to be mindful of what's irritating me, and saying, could I do a 3-2-1? Maybe we could try that for 3-2-1 practice. I'm not sure I would start with nightmares. But just what irritates me a bit in my daily life. So yeah, but for me, the richest part of this chapter, and why I have tabbed a couple of places, is those two charts on where the shadow emotion becomes the authentic. What's the authentic emotion underneath it? Let's see, where is that? That's on page, yes, 57. And I think this could even be a separate chapter, because this is the natural transmutations of the emotions into higher octaves, is my metaphor.
Yes, the symptom manifests from the original shadow form.
Right.
It was when I got here that I said, no, we're not going to get through this whole chapter in just 1 hour hanging out on ILiA. So,
no.
And
no, I think,
and I read this through with Tiffany, I think, and we went through that.
Oh.
We were both looking at it and going, huh? What? Because not everything resonates when you read down this list. If I say original shadow form is drive, and it manifests from resentment out of outside pressure. I mean, the contrasts are sometimes so not necessarily opposite, but so in a different place.
Non-intuitive, yeah.
Thank you, non-intuitive. So that's when I realized that I'm going to need some more help here with this.
Okay. I'm thinking that the emotions really need this really needs to be ideally it would be a separate chapter. I noticed that he divides his mind module actually as 2 segments. It's intellect, thoughts, stories, and emotions. He's lumping them together. And I think these two charts here on page 57, and then the other one on page 64, which I love. Um, I think maybe, yeah, he kind of lumped them in here because he didn't have a separate chapter on emotional.
Yes.
Uh, so this is really so he's really putting two things together that are actually not one heading.
That's
Yes,
what we're looking
yes,
at.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. I love that the authentic emotion, and then it's liberated. It's liberated octave. That's another octave up, and I love that. But that gets into spiritual practice, right? So yeah, gosh. So this is the dilemma: how to deal with this in your, because I hadn't thought it through to this point, but the transmutation of emotions is really a separate mechanism and therefore a separate subject from
Mhm.
shadow work per se. And he's kind of lumping them together in a way, and they're closely interrelated, kind of like our circulatory system and our nervous system are intimately interrelated with each other in our bodies, but they're two separate systems, and they work in two different ways. So I think so that's okay. Yeah, yeah. So with that. So yeah, I have had a lot of I have other experience with shadow work. I've done, one way and another, a lot of it over the decades. So let me ask you, kind of take it up a few levels of abstraction. That what do you envision with the support pod? What's your intention and aspiration for it? And then we'll come back and see how we can work this in.
My intentions for the support pod change every time I do one.
Ah,
Because I mean, look at what's going on here. My original intention of was let's use this new book I found, which happens to be 20 years old, right? Uh,
yeah,
uh, I'm all excited about somebody's made a plan for how to get integralized. And what happens, I find, is that I'm watching this robust information on YouTube from our fellow students in Integral, and there, the explication is a dopamine rush in itself, and I'm sure I mean, I love it. I love the learning. I love what I'm learning about. I love the new paradigm that it explodes the world outwards for me to be able to understand and hang stuff on. And the ones I grew up with they didn't scale well. So this scales. This will be good as far as I can ever
yes.
imagine and more.
It's
But
and it's coherent as it scales. Yes.
okay, that's one thing. The understanding of a comprehensive paradigm that transcends and includes everything in stages um, is fine, but uh, understanding that, getting that big picture and bringing my body from the place that it's come from. I mean, I'm all beat up and bruised and psychologically messed up. Um, and now this comes to light as to how it is. And I'm seeing the energy that I spend in the car on other drivers, or when things are going fine, with people who will pop into my mind, and I start arguing with them. I start creating conflict scenarios and how I'm going to deal with this. And it's eating up my energy. No, I used to drink a lot of Chardonnay in my life. And in retrospect now, I see how what Chardonnay did for me was it calmed that down. The
Yeah.
reward at the end of the day looked like the drink, which gave me the buzz. But
I
the
hear you.
real reward was shutting off that conflict machine. Now, in the process of my own life, I discovered that what I have, or the way that my stuff manifests, is looks, walks, and talks just like that duck that people now call CPTSD, which is when stuff happens to you over a long period of time, usually when you're growing up, and you wind up doing this weird stuff that doesn't even look like, my mom locked me in the closet when I was 12 and I freaked out ever since. But now I do this. Now, what's that got to do with the closet? So here we have trying to recognize what I'm doing and seeing its relationship to something else. If I, as Ken Wilber uses, the monster in the that wants to eat me in my dreams,
Uh-huh.
boy, oh boy, that takes a pretty sharp mind to jump from there to something that is going on inside me that I'm denying in myself. So, and and I don't know when I'm approaching this now, I go, wait, do I need to send my therapist the 3-2-1 process and do some of that with her? I'll probably do that.
Do you have a therapist now?
Yes, yes.
Excellent, because if you just try this, even if you just try the 3-2-1 process as it's elaborated here, it will bring up stuff that you can take to your therapist. And that's great. It
Okay,
is,
so the 3-2-1 process has as one of its benefits the generation and clarification of ideas that we can then go get professional help on.
yes, yes. And here's the cat. I am so glad for you that you already have a professional you can go to with this stuff. My concern is that if people really sit down and try this with really focused attention, I mean, most people are just reading it through for interest, that's okay. But if somebody sits down, my little kind of my little anxiety module in the back of my brain goes, what if somebody sits down, really tries it with full focus and propels them into something they can't that just wrecks them, and they don't have a therapist they can run to with it. Now, if you have or you have a friend or you have a group, but I think this chapter, the 3-2-1, should come with a warning or maybe some references to groups that work with this together, where they have somebody in it who knows what they're doing, who can help with the group process. I mean, group therapy, I mean, just even a support group where somebody in the group knows where to go if somebody needs professional help. But I mean, this is, I mean, you see where this can go, Larry. You see
Yeah,
where, I
I
mean,
see it can
this
go
with
to
some
Lord
a
of
bit
the
of
Flies.
structure. Well, yeah, it can go to Lord of the Flies, but then you say, oh my God, in my psyche just went to Lord of the Flies and I'm a mess. Where can I go for help? And
Mm.
so this is where some a bit of structure here. I mean, and this is like now at 9 on blue sky dreaming here, but some structures to have a chapter like this or a group like your group working on it, but with contacts that where you can go to say, hey, we're in deeper than we can deal with, help. What do you, and if you're going to really go through this particular 3-2-1 exercise in the group together, have a lifeline, have a lifeguard who can be called, right? Have your therapist or somebody in the integral circles. There are a lot of people who do shadow work. Kim Barta, I don't know of any others, but there are people in our integral circles who do shadow work who are professional therapists. So um, to go and to go into the 3-2-1 process in any depth, I would recommend having, you know, kind of your having the SOS signal set up and somebody who's receiving at the other end, kind of like having
Well,
911 to call on your phone.
who is a different kind of observer of the overall conversation that's happening when one person's in the hot seat and the other person's asking questions or whatever,
Yeah.
or their witnesses around. Not everybody has the wherewithal to go, oh boy, this they're going in this direction and this is going to not work. Now, there's plenty of sophomoric responses we can all have
Yeah.
and go, no, no, no. Everybody wants to run the show.
Uh,
Here's my experience in this. I am a graduate from 1995 of the New Warrior Training Adventure, which is it's the major flagship workshop of the Mankind Project. Now, this started in the 80s as just as another one of the things that you referenced earlier that happening in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
70s. Well, this started really popping in the 80s, and these men invented a a workshop to a weekend long thing where people faced a lot of stuff, and it's meant to engender a sense of initiation into manhood. It was dealing
Ah.
specifically with how come girls get menstruation and guys get driver's licenses. It's not enough. And uh, and then they started introducing IFS stuff into the groups afterwards. See, what they would do is you'd go in, you'd get this intensive SD like workshop, but all focused on guy stuff. Then when you come out, you get to go to meetings with the like little pods
Uh-huh.
where everybody has some instruction and has some practice from the weekend on how to do inner work, doing the work, okay? And so and one of when these guys get together in their pods, the one of the phrases there's a protocol to get through. Is everybody present? Anybody got something in their back of their head that's going to get in the way of being present? Blah, blah, blah. Here's the business. Now, if I were to do work tonight, I would work on blank. And I
Oh.
give it a rating of 1 to 5 as to how bad I want to do it. Five
Uh-huh.
being right now, and one being I could skip it and never care. And then they pick out the stuff and guys do their work. And it's a 2 hours meetings and it's institutionalized for many years now. But and this is where my Lord of the Flies things comes in. It's what I mean by that is this is a bunch of guys who essentially don't know any better than they did before, except now they've got this weekend and now they're practicing. And then there's groups of guys that say, okay, come into our group until you're ready to, go on your own. And they practice. So there is a container of safety created, okay?
Good. Yes.
Now, what I would like to see is uh, the thing I don't like about that is unless you're lucky to have a therapist in the crowd with you or somebody who's got more experience, it's easily hijacked by somebody who's got their own passion about what's going on, which could be their shadow projection. So that's why, if there are people in Integral who are already shadow therapists and by a shadow therapist, I would mean solely, singularly, somebody who knows what I just said and is aware of it and knows what to do about it when it happens,
Yeah.
at least more often than not. Nobody's perfect, but what I'm looking for here in general is a strategy that we can institutionalize or at least get
Ooh.
a pattern for, because otherwise all we got is a bunch of people buying this book and getting to the shadow part, and then it's like, well, yeah, I read the book for a while, and then once I wasn't getting the buzz, the dopamine hit from the ahas, and it came down to the description of what I had to do. I the impetus kind of was blocked, and so I need to power through that. But in trying to power through it, I realized that part of my uh, that the problem with it is that I don't really know what to do, and I'm a guy who recognizes what that possibility is to working in groups. So I think what we could do is we could do this online with each other and do these processes. Um, uh, like you say, maybe if somebody was a therapist, that would be great. But we'd kind of be shooting on our own
Yeah.
with the experience that we have, and as long as we don't pick, the mother load to start with, but just pick some, just like you said, it's why does this guy bug me constantly in my mind and
Yeah.
and in disproportion to um what my own reasoning can see is beyond
Yeah.
deserving.
keep it sweet and simple. Yeah. Yeah, for what you envision with this, so you see going through chapter by chapter,
Well,
and then
now I don't see going through chapter by chapter at all. As you said, the introduction to this book is very powerful. And that's why I spent a whole hour just doing my notes on the introduction, because I said this is a frame, a perspective a window frame that we need to look through
through.
in order to see what's going on here. And so the way that I describe that is, if we've got body, mind, and spirit, we would tend to make the fourth side of that pyramid shadow, the way we're reading this. I say, no, no, no. I say, shadow, it's a three-sided pyramid that is supported by shadow work. And if you don't get the shadow thing down and done, it's going to just keep screwing up all your efforts, in
Yes,
addition
it's
to draining the energy for that effort. I know what
yes,
they mean when they say, when you unload this stuff, these guys go to a weekend workshop in the Warriors and they're inhaling again. It's profound. Their wives say, I can't believe what happened to them. Okay, well, they did a big dump, but it's only about 60% of what was really on the surface, and was the heads were easily cut off. Now
yeah,
we get into the stuff that is more individualized. Um, so 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 I say, now I don't even necessarily want to get into those couple of
yeah,
charts. I just want
I
to see,
agree.
how good can we get at just doing shadow, and let somebody, the rest of that body, mind, spirit stuff is all gravy to me.
Yeah,
If I can just clean up my room so that I can get some work done here, that's
yes.
what I'm
Let
saying.
me clean up the room so that you can get real work done later. Yes,
Yes. Yeah. So
that's
at this point in time, and again, maybe we'll do another, maybe next month we'll do one and I'll change my mind again. But since I'm doing it, I guess I get to decide. But
oh yeah,
frankly,
this is your
I
baby.
would say I would rather just go right for this, stop right here and just say, let's figure out how to walk through this woods, because there's no more path already. But
That's
people
right.
are saying, oh, you could walk through this side, or you can go through the brambles, or yeah, we could. What's the plan? So uh, there's
Yeah.
that. In our twice a month meetings in person in Boulder, we have. I kind of broached this subject before, about what is our container here. And there are several people who are coaches and therapists, and they said, look, we've got the container and we all feel safe. I'm kind of the newbie in this crowd. I haven't been
Okay.
studying 15 years like a lot of the folks have. Uh, so they said, we this is a consensus we're sitting here with, is that we could do stuff. Now, I wasn't asking that question specifically about shadow work. I was just saying, how safe can I feel here about talking, and how safe can I feel about um, uh, people hanging on to keeping me in the space if I need to do work. Now, nobody's been doing real work. We kind of talk about stuff, but
Right.
I could see that as another pod possibility for doing this stuff occasionally. But right now, I would say, I don't see any reason to try and build those other sides of the triangle until this base is done. And I
Right.
would be satisfied if Kim Barta or some of the other therapists who are already involved with this went, hey, Larry, I heard you were doing this, and we've got this whole structure all figured out, and here it is. And it's on, you can go get to this link, and we've got plans. If it has, the real question is, if this has been out for this long and they had this thing as a precursor, the Integral Life Practice Starter Kit came out, and this is something that just came out before that book did.
Oh,
Ken has talked in his latest book. He's got 20 pages on 321 again, and he in the Religion of Tomorrow. It's on his videos. It's in the coursework. So it's important. He says it's important. And I believe him when he
yeah.
describes how he got it by listening to Fritz Perls until he saw the pattern and then
It was
bringing it
Fritz. It
down.
was Fritz Perls. I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what he says, that he said everything he did. And he said, and Fritz Perls said that he said, I could cure anybody of their neurosis in 15 minutes. And he said, and this is how he did it. That's Ken boiled it down. Okay. So,
Yes, but you're talking about a container, and I'm really resonating with that because to do work like this, you need a safe container. This is psychotherapy. This is psychotherapy. And I boil that down. I call it rules of the road. And understand like a memorandum of understanding how we conduct ourselves in this group, safe parameters, so that people, if somebody's going off the rails, other people say, hey, this is what we're doing here. But a common understanding agreed on upfront in writing so that everybody knows what the rules are. This gets into mean girls. That's different. Guys, mean girls operate different from brutal guys like we do. Oh, how could you not know that? You're obviously not one of us if you don't just know that. Well, if nobody tells me, how will I know? That's a way of being in, out. Guys go who's up, who's down. Girls go who's in, who's out. So to have a container, part of the container is what I call rules of the road. Here's how we conduct ourselves at this meeting. And you can revisit it as a group and change them from time to time. But especially in work like this, one needs a container and having a very clear statement up front that you can have people read and say, are there any issues about this? I mean, it can be like a group contribution, but to if there's a serious conflict, we drop the agenda and address the conflict before we move on to the agenda. This is like electricity, right? It's real energy. You want it to light the rooms and cook your food. You don't want it to burn the house down. It needs insulation, you need grounding, all that stuff. So containers, so people feel safe because they are safe, and explicitly stated kind of rules of the road is the best I can. It's kind of a neutral. It's like rules are like, or just
sure.
how we conduct ourselves in these meetings. So it's clear and nobody can do the mean girl thing, saying, well, how could you not know that? I mean, with the implication, the fact that you don't know that makes it obvious that you don't belong in this group. That's how mean girls push people
Mm.
out that they don't like. And I've had that tried on me.
I mean, I'm
Okay.
just glad that we've got these nuggets and action items out of
Yeah.
today's conversation. And
Awesome.
we are definitely on the same page about the importance of this, the importance of the introduction, the fact that this chapter could have been two chapters, and the fact that the shadow work has to be a fundamental process if we ever expect the other three things to materialize.
Yeah, well, they will materialize, but they will be weakened, compromised, and um, dirty in some places. Like the Darth Vader, okay, Ken Wilber's genius again. The Darth Vader move is possible at every structure stage, and that goes all the way up through third tier. Doing our shadow work is our best. This is from me. This is doing our shadow work as we go, keeping it up. It needs to be an ongoing, regular part of the process. Otherwise, we are always vulnerable to
Does
the
that
dark
mean I've
side
got to
taking
do
over.
my shadow work as often as I do my elliptical?
Uh, elliptical wouldn't be
Maybe
a bad
not.
idea. No, but it's just being aware. It's more like just being aware if it comes at me, it's coming from
As
me,
often
and
as I
being
do
well.
my laundry, maybe.
Okay, okay.
Okay. All
depending on
right.
how
Well,
often you do
I
your
mean,
laundry.
there's a goal. There's a goal. Okay. Well, I'm really pleased with our experience today, and thank you so much for your time on this.
My pleasure. This is, as
And
you can tell, this is stuff that is very close to my heart.
okay. All right.
We'll
Until
be in
next
touch. Take
time.
care.
Bye bye.